You ready? You're ready. Okay, we are good. Okay, good evening and welcome to the AHAB it's February 13th meeting. We will note a few things, but wanted to start off by taking attendance. So we will begin with seeing all who's here. Once your name is called, please say present. Mark Bueller, Andrew Gallagher,
Present.
Marielle Fierro,
Present.
Christina Gentry here, Elizabeth O'Neill,
Present.
Donnavan Dillon is not here, Monty Soko,
Here.
thank you, and Leah Roslin, you're here. I will speak briefly on the changes and adjustments we've made to public comment. We'll note that we encourage public comment, and to which can be made in person or virtually. We ask that public comment be communicated with your comments within 3 minutes time so that there's space for a number of people to comment, and so that we are giving time available and space available for folks to comment in on this board's actions. But the board will not discuss or debate these items, nor will the board make decisions on other items presented during this time. So those are all the updates I wanted to start off with, and I will send it on over to Leah to get us started with the intros to our meeting.
Thank you. While I mess with the... Why won't it show? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Please state your name before speaking. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Virtual participants should use the raise hand function to indicate they wish to speak. Once your name is called, you will be unmuted and may turn your camera on to provide your comments. The city reserves the right to turn videos on or off or mute participants. The primary format for accessing or participating in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. Thank you, and I'll turn the meeting back over to Ms. Gentry.
Thank you, Leah. With that, we wanted to get right into the agenda. Our agenda A, item 1, is to approve the minutes and consider approval of the meeting minutes of December 9th, 2024's meeting. I will note that you do not have to be in attendance to approve the minutes. Please know that any board member can view the city's YouTube once available, and that will suffice as viewing. But let's go ahead and move to approve the meeting minutes of December 9th, 2024. Once your name is called, state that you agree or that, yes, you approve or disapprove, and I'll go down the list again. Make a motion
I move to approve the minutes as written.
Thank you so
I
much.
second the motion.
This motion has been first and seconded. Thank you for helping me remind me of
Good. You're
the
good.
schematics of this, but we'll go down through the members. Mark Bueller, Andrew Gallagher,
Agreed.
Marielle Fierro,
Aye.
Christina Gentry, approve. Elizabeth O'Neill,
Aye.
Donnavan Dillon's not here. Monty Soko,
Approve.
okay. And with all of the members in attendance, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 approvals, and we will move that action on forward. We'll next move to B on our agenda, items number 1. We had welcomed new Affordable Housing Advisory Board member Donnavan Dillon. Welcome, Donnavan. He's not here in person, but we hope to meet you in April's meeting. And we'll move on to the next, because we've already done introductions here. But with the next agenda item, we will be reviewing the Ordinance 9984, Article 3, establishing role and duties of Affordable Advisory Board. There's no formal action required on this, but we wanted to use this as a guidance and education to be reviewed independently and to talk about it maybe for a few minutes if there are any questions or comments on the ordinance. So I will open the space up for any questions or comments on item number 2 of our agenda.
This is Leah Roslin, Affordable Housing Administrator. If I may, just a couple of notes for context for why this ordinance was included. Firstly, as you all are aware, in 2024, the City Commission did a boards and commissions rehaul. And even boards that were continued, like the Affordable Housing Advisory Board, the former board was like disbanded. And this is, for all intents and purposes, a brand new board. And so a new ordinance was written outlining the purpose and duties of all of the city boards and commissions. And I just pulled out the AHAB section. And then the bylaws that are the next agenda item are taken verbatim by what's in the ordinance. And so just wanted to show it to you all since, we do have a new ordinance, but also as it feeds into the next agenda item. So I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
So I have a comment or question. So what I feel like maybe is missing in this is the exploration of new strategies or ideas. And maybe it's implied enough in what's written, but it's not called out. Like if we had a subcommittee or whatever that was thinking about a different strategy, like let's say right now we put out the NOFO. Let's say we had a different strategy where we actually had a piece of ground or something and we wanted to put out an RFP, and that's a completely different strategy and methodology for using the trust funds. And I'm not sure maybe it's captured in there and maybe I just don't read it that way, but I just want to make sure that would be captured, because I think we would make recommendations to the governing body for how to implement or how to use. I don't know. Like I said, maybe you feel it's captured and I'm just missing it.
I feel like it's captured in that it's pretty broad in terms of how you're advising the governing body on implementation and use of the trust fund.
The trust fund, okay. If you
Yeah.
feel like it's captured there, I'm okay with that. I didn't quite read it that way, but I'm okay.
Yeah, well, I
So
mean,
make
that's
sure
just my
that that's
opinion.
clear.
I agree. I read it the same way. I think it doesn't explicitly say that, but I think item 1 captures that,
Okay.
gives us the leeway to make those recommendations.
Yeah, this is Maria Ferreiro. This is city ordinance, so we would not be able to actually, well, we can make a recommendation to change it, but I
Right.
think leaving it broad will leave our predecessors room to make decision and choice as well. So I think we have the flexibility and freedom to be able to determine with this particular language what we'd like to do. And so it's not inhibiting us, but it won't also change
I'm
the
fine
way
with
other
that.
groups, but
I'm good with that.
yeah.
I appreciate your guys' read on it.
One question that I had, just a clarification. So duty number 3 starts out by making it clear that our role is to make recommendations. However, in the second sentence, it calls out specifically that we shouldn't be applying for any grant without prior approval. Am I to read that as to suggest that a potential duty of this board could be us actually applying for grants versus us making recommendations that city staff would apply for grants?
It wouldn't be the AHAB members applying for the
Okay.
grant. Usually it's a recommendation that the board apply, and then that's an administrative duty for the staff to
Okay.
apply on behalf
Okay.
of the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so for example, sorry, and this might be too much, but several years ago, the AHAB submitted a CIP application. So it was the AHAB board that came up with the project that the application would apply for funds for. the AHAB gave me the language that they wanted to be included in that application, but I was actually the one to submit the application and sort of oversee the administrative process of it.
Okay.
CIP, just real quick.
Oh, sorry, capital improvement project.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that clarification.
Great discussion. Since there's no formal action required on this, I appreciate discussion, and we can maybe think about moving on to the next action or agenda item. And so for this next action, or this is an action, it would require us to move to adopt the Affordable Housing Advisory Board bylaws. And then again, reviewing and considering these bylaws, it would, yeah, it would, I think, maybe take a couple of minutes for us to review this if you haven't, and to see if there's any edits you want made. I would also note our next meeting would be April 10th, and so we would look at discussing, editing, or looking at these bylaws, but we really couldn't make a decision on that until next meeting if we have a deep discussion on that. Though I would encourage deep discussions, I would also encourage us to have just an understanding that this is the bylaws that we're probably going to adhere to, understand the purpose and the reason for these to be in place. And then if there are any edits, I'm curious, Leah, if there are edits in the interim for our next meeting, is there a possibility to share those with you so that we can review them in the next meeting? If that's something that's a consideration for the rest of the board, I would encourage you to do that. But also here to have a discussion on some of the bylaws and updates that you would like to include.
So to clarify again, so this document is within our purview to actually make revisions to?
I'm going to look to
Probably
Leah
make
for that.
recommendations.
Right.
No?
So a lot of it is just boilerplate from our legal department and is standard across all boards and commissions through the city. And then if you'll notice, the majority of the language in the bylaws is pulled directly from the ordinance. And so that, I mean, the AHAB could make a recommendation to the commission to change it, but it is doubtful that they would take that recommendation. But if there are, you know, specific meeting procedures or like things that are additive that the board feels important be included in the bylaws, I think those could be considered. And yes, it is in the purview of the AHAB to approve, you know, the bylaws for your board, as long as it's not taking out anything that's in ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is incredibly broad in that it says the board, our board, to advise the governing body of the city of Lawrence, Kansas on all matters relating to the city's implementation and use of the fund. That is about as broad as it gets. So I think that gives us a lot of leeway. You know, if we have things we want to explore or that this board in the future would want to explore, that there's leeway to do it under this. So I'm pretty comfortable. The rest of it's, like you said, kind of boilerplate. It's the structure of the structure.
Right.
I'm appreciative of this being in our agenda because these reviews ensure familiarization of the ordinance and the bylaws, which will have a deeper discussion once we get into our subcommittees too. It'll help guide some of those discussions, I feel. So yes, thank you for the discussion here. If there is no more further discussion on this agenda item, we could move on.
Do we have an action item?
Oh, we have them.
So I will move to adopt the Affordable Housing Advisory Board bylaws as written.
Do I have a second?
I will second.
Thank you. We've had a first and a second on this action. And so I will take roll again, and we will say yes or no. Once again, I'll go through the same order. Mark Bueller, Andrew Gallagher,
Aye.
Mario Fierro,
Aye.
Christina Gentry, aye. Elizabeth O'Neill,
Aye.
Donnavan Dillon's not here. Monty Sokup.
Aye.
Okay, and that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it has been moved and approved. And thank you.
Getting through this agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what happens in the evening times. Okay.
I heard 8 o'clock. Not for us, not today.
Thank you for that discussion. So we're moving on to our next agenda item on the list, which is number 5, and that is to move to approve Affordable Housing Advisory Board, number 4, to discuss AHAB subcommittee work and participation. Thank you. And it also comes with an action to come to a decision on AHAB subcommittee assignments and membership. So this will require us to really have a conversation about. And so I'm opening up that opportunity to talk about the proposed subcommittees. And Leah, I know that there's been conversation with the city since we last spoke yesterday on the rules and what is expectations from board members, to give an example of the subcommittee groups and how our participation will be going forward. Could you give the group a broader understanding and general understanding about these advisory board subcommittees and what that entails to be on the committee?
Yeah, so as if you remember back to your orientation, we talked about this joint city and county plan to end chronic homelessness and increase affordable housing, a place for everyone. Within that plan, there are strategies for sort of every point on the housing continuum, affordable housing being one of them. And the plan was adopted by the city and county commissions. And so this is really like work that the city commission wants to have be done. Within the plan, in each strategy, there's a lead that's noted for who will lead the work of that strategy. And there are 2 that the Affordable Housing Advisory Board is responsible for taking lead on. And one is a place for everyone, Affordable Housing Strategy 1, providing subsidy for new development of units with the specifications identified in the Place for Everyone Affordable Housing Plan. So again, that's determining how the affordable housing trust funds will be allocated, how they will be prioritized and utilized towards our goals. And then the second one is Strategy 11, identify and create sustainable diversified funding streams for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And so what we're recommending is that the AHAB form 2 work groups to get that work done. One would be finding ways to come up with new and more money to feed into the trust fund, and the other would be determining the best way to use the trust funds towards our common goals. Just some like administrative notes about these. According to the new boards and committees, like ordinance, subcommittees do need to be approved by the city commission, and all meetings need to be open to the public. So unlike previous AHAB subcommittees where they were held just more informally, whether or not there's a quorum of the AHAB, these meetings will be open to the public and will sort of follow the same meeting procedures of I'll create the agenda, post it. There will be an opportunity for public comment and public participation. So we're hoping that every member participate in at least one work group. And was there anything else that I needed to cover?
I think that was good.
I think what we talked about was just, this is Manuel Ferreiro, we discussed, because it is an open meeting, quorum is not an issue, because it used to be in previous, was that only 3 members of the board could participate. That is no longer necessitated. So anybody can be on either one of these. And these are, because the city commission approved a place for everyone, we are tasked with getting these done. So these are coming from the direct approval of city commission. So that's the this is our work, so tasked by the city.
Can I ask a quick question, clarifying question? Strategy 1, can you help me understand how it's different than the general purpose of this group? Because what I heard was strategy 1 is allocating the funds from the Affordable Housing Trust, and this group together, I thought, was the main purpose of when we got together, was to allocate the funds from that trust. So is there a difference between this subcommittee and what we're all here to do?
It's directly connected. I would say that the key to me is with specifications identified in the A Place for Everyone plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the goal and intent is that we're getting really specific about how to best use the trust funds to meet the goals and to ensure that we are providing affordable housing for the priority populations identified in the plan.
Okay, thanks. Just wanted to make sure I understood.
Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to kind of your description of the lack of quorum, et cetera, being less of an issue. Am I hearing that the subcommittees would have voting members that are not members of AHAB potentially? No.
Two? You want to?
So I kept hearing like open meeting and the membership, like, and so if you could clarify that.
So the subcommittees do need to be comprised of AHAB members.
Okay.
Yeah, so the public can participate in the same way that they participate in other city meetings via public comment.
Okay.
I think my clarification was there was an old way where
Right.
not the public really, I don't think, participated too heavily, but that because it was a closed meeting, you could not have quorum for the subcommittees. Now that it is required in ordinance for any subcommittee to be in a public meeting, quorum is not necessarily as important because it's open to the public. We wouldn't, I think, be doing any voting in those subcommittees. We would be obviously coming back together as a larger group to discuss the findings. But that was I was like, there was a way, and now that has changed because everything has changed.
Yeah, I think with Cora, no business can be conducted,
Correct.
basically. And if you're just a subcommittee, you're pushing the business up to the
Correct.
committee for the business to be conducted, which is probably part of what that
Yeah.
is about.
Okay.
So additionally,
Forward,
these
that's
groups
what-
will be comprised of a chair or someone who's assigned to, moderate and facilitate these conversations. And Leah will be the person helping to facilitate the schedules and times. But this is ultimately a smaller or a subcommittee that will operationalize the actions that we are moving to a larger group. And your participation is required. So with that, I think, too, if you had a chance to look at these and decide which one really speaks to you, or you could put your expertise into, we'd love to take a tally of those and put some names down to who is on these work groups.
Can I ask one more quick clarifying question about strategy 11? When it says create sustainable diversified funding sources, can someone speak a little bit just about what that might look like? Because I'm pretty sure that that's not something that I'm going to be able to offer a whole lot of expertise to, but I'm just not sure exactly. Are we talking about identifying grants, or are we talking about how to take the money from the fund and invest it and make it grow, or like what exactly?
So the purpose is to look for additional revenue streams for the trust fund. So that could be grants, it could be additional revenue streams coming in through the city that might be identified. There's a lot of local community housing trust funds that we could look to for how they create revenue for their trust fund. I know that Monty's already started.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to
I'll
this
jump
at
in a
all?
little bit. So, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, I was part of a group that studied other cities that have trust funds, many of them college towns, that similar in makeup to us, and how they administered their trust funds when this all was just getting started. So I think one of the things that group could consider would be reaching out to other cities with trust funds and see how their trust funds are funded, because there may be strategies that we don't know about. And I'll give one example. In some of the states, there are what's called a transfer tax. So when you buy or sell a property, there is a tax on that purchase or sale of real property. And that can be used, or a portion of that can be used for funding. And that's a tax that occurs on people that are buying and selling real estate, whether it's commercial or residential. So there are lots of other strategies. That's just one that
Sure.
I happen to be aware of. So I think part of that group's work might be researching what other cities or municipalities do and see if any of those are workable in Lawrence.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that, Monty. Are there any discussions about the work groups and your committal to them? Is there someone who feels really strongly about committing to a work group currently that they could share so we can write down some names?
Can I ask a commitment-based question? Would it be within the purview of the subcommittee to determine how often they meet, or do we have a required amount of meeting times? And I ask this because when we were in discussion about moving our larger meetings to quarterly, I think the conversation started gravitating towards, in the meantime, in the space between, we would have these meetings. So I just wanted to hear, probably from you, Leah, what the expectation is, and then we can obviously decide what the, yeah.
I hope it's a satisfactory answer. But I was anticipating that the work groups would set the frequency and schedule amongst themselves, determine a deadline for when you would like to get the work done, and then determine a frequency and schedule that works best for you all.
I'm going to jump in there and volunteer to be on the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Grants work group.
Thank you, Monty.
They're both interesting, but
I would like to be on that one as well. I think that would probably align with my strengths better.
Thank you.
Happy to be a part of either. I think I would have more to offer to the strategy 1, and I'd learn quite a bit while helping in strategy 11. So I'm happy to be the last person placed wherever. If that's helpful.
It's very helpful.
Well, do either of you have strong?
I do, and I feel like the work group that is listed underneath, and I know that there's additional information scrolling down, but being a part of the restorative housing Place for Everyone strategy, I think I could operationalize and really give good information to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Revenue Work Group, identified diversified revenue streams to support the fund. But additionally, I can also serve both of these boards too, just to make sure that there's enough expertise and people filling that space.
Can you tell me where everyone is placed right now?
What's that?
Can you tell me where everyone is placed right now?
Monty and Elizabeth are in the trust fund grants work group.
Okay.
Christina's in the revenue work group, and you're willing to be wherever,
Yeah.
wherever you're most needed.
So are we creating a work group for those 3 bullet points at the bottom as
Yep.
well?
Those are existing.
Okay.
Those are.
Isn't
Yeah,
there a 4th work group?
There are several. Those are, sorry, this is Mario Ferrero.
On the affordable and supportive
Yes, so
acquisitions?
these particular work groups that you're seeing are a part of the affordable housing branch of A Place for Everyone. I'm sitting here, I'm like, I'm in all 3 of these work groups down here, so I'm tempering my time with this,
Right.
but I could place myself in either one of these spaces, mainly because my expertise on the national scale fits very well. But it's seeming like a lot of folks are leaning into the first one. So if it feels, and I have pretty good partnerships with a bunch of affordable housing trust fund communities. So you can place me in the second group. Yeah, I know. It's like I really want to work on the first one, but I understand. We have a.
yeah, and it's so. It's not up to me, but I know that you have had some ideas.
Yes.
before, so I'm wondering if you'd be willing to.
If we could have.
be one.
Yes, I would absolutely love to be in the fund grants one as long as we have enough support in the revenue space.
And to be honest, I could flip-flop either way if,
Oh, no, we were talking about You and I are on some levels of conversation.
okay, that's fine.
Whatever's comfortable. Yeah, so please put me in the first one.
Yeah. Okay. So Andrew.
Just put me down for strategy 11. I'll
You okay?
I'll be a part of the trust fund. It feels like I might need a little bit of guidance from a partner / teammate on who to reach out to, where the data lies, but I'm happy to do the work as long as.
Amazing.
I would say that because I do absolutely have some recommendations and connections that I can help
Yeah.
move towards without having to directly be involved. So
Yeah,
happy
just
to.
CC'd email or two, and
Sure.
I'm good to go.
Amazing.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Of course.
Okay.
Do we want to identify, I don't know if we want to call it a chair, but somebody to convene, a convener,
Right.
as we can call it,
Yeah.
each of those?
Yeah, you and me both.
Just knowing that the chair would just set the scheduled meetings and make sure that we are on agenda, and the rest of the work group will commit to the work of the group.
Can I nominate myself for not the chair?
I was going to say, can we start nominating people? I'm just going to start saying.
Just tell me what to do, please.
Christina, that leaves you, or we
Yes,
can,
I'm happy to.
yeah.
Sorry to do that.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
okay because we'll process this together. And
Or you can nominate someone who's not here.
Right.
Yeah, I guess that was my question. Are we going
Mark
to allow
Bueller.
our two missing members? Are we retrofitting them into this, or are we volunteering them into
Oh,
spaces?
that's a good question.
to get this moving is
Yeah. You've been
You're in this
voluntold.
group. You're not the chair.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to chair the work group for funding revenue.
Okay. And yeah, I'll reach out to Donnavan and Mark and see what their preference is. And what about the other work group?
I am going to unnominate myself because I am already a part of all 3. So I'm going to say I do not have capacity to do it, and I encourage my fellow.
I'm going to nominate Monty.
Monty misses chairing.
Hot potato method.
I'll do it. That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monty.
It's the evening and I'm more awake, so you're getting the spicy Elizabeth.
After hours.
Real.
Amazing.
Well, thank you all for participating in this conversation, and as well as Mark Bueller and other AHAB members. They can talk about what their contributions look like going forward as well. We'll get their input. I will say, as far as answer frequency, I'm looking at our calendar. Our next meeting is in April, and then following that, it would be May. Is that correct?
June.
June. So it's April, June, and then following that would be.
We start the application process. So that's when we start getting into the more frequent meetings.
So that would be like.
A question.
October, November.
Are we hoping to modify the application process before this process? I mean, that might impact the,
Yeah, we had conversation about, so I'll speak candidly to what is happening on the national front and
Right.
versus our realities here is that what we discussed yesterday was that might be too short of a timeline. I mean,
pretty tough.
if it happens and we all come to a consensus, it will have to go back to City Commission for approval. It has to get on their calendar. So, and we have an affordable housing study that will be conducted this year and be completed at the end of the year. So that may also.
end of the calendar year.
Correct.
So that could provide some really good direction.
Correct. So, yeah, it would be my personal, speaking for the group, my personal ideology that this would be a 2026 implementation.
Thank you.
Yay, housing study.
So thinking of those next calendar dates, April, and then the next was in
June or July, right?
My calendar eludes me mentally. But just keeping those in mind as we think about frequency of these meetings, these subcommittee meetings, and how we can make sure that there's some good time to make weight of some of these opportunities of discussion, and what that looks like for putting on your calendars moving forward.
So for next steps, I will just reach out to the subcommittees. Well, first the city commission needs to approve the subcommittees.
Okay.
And after that happens, then I'll reach out and let you all know that they've been approved and we can start meeting.
Okay.
So will you be at all the subcommittee meetings as well?
Yeah, so I'll do the same thing.
Congratulations. You're on both committees.
Yay.
Okay.
We would definitely be leaning on Leah to help strategize and all the Zooms and all the things that we need to
Right.
get together too. So it'll be very busy work.
Leah,
Will
would
those be broadcast too?
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Okay.
yeah,
just like this.
yeah.
Leah, could you imagine that potential going on the agenda for next week for commission?
No,
Okay.
it will have to wait until likely March,
Yeah.
or sorry. I don't think that there's a meeting the last week of February, so March 4th.
March 4th, okay.
Would have had to get on the
Gives us some
agenda
time.
today.
Yeah.
That's true.
Today's the deadline.
Oh my gosh, today's Thursday. I keep thinking
I know,
it's
it's
like
lost.
Wednesday,
Yeah.
Monday, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Sad that I know that and I don't even.
Didn't even know it was Thursday, so that's not good for me.
Okay. So I see their action includes coming to a decision on AHAB, subcommittee assignments, and membership. I feel like that's been completed. Is there something that we need to do in order to kind of stamp that as an action that we have done in this space and time? Asking for clarity because I want to make sure on the structure. We don't need to vote for this or anything further than this discussion. Okay. Okay. All right, great discussion. Thank you all. Looking forward to those subcommittee meetings. Okay. Moving forward, we can look at now discussing agenda item 5, and that was to move to approve Affordable Housing Advisory Board goals. So this is discussion and modification and/or come to agreement on Affordable Housing Advisory Board goals. And so I wanted to kind of also pull in the former chair and also kind of talk about the etymology of these goals, and also take an inventory of Mariel's insertion here, but that we will be looking at a 2025, hopefully, completion of a housing study, which also helped us determine these goals and moved us to strategize where it went then. But maybe a little bit of history about these goals in a way that can help support the movement going forward with this AHAB group. Monty? like a little, I know I'm putting a spot.
I'm at a loss, you're hard to believe, but I'm at a loss for words. So, I mean, if you aren't aware, I mean, we probably spent 8 months or more over time working on these at a couple at a time. And it was frankly, it was a lot of difficult work, I felt. Not that it was good work, but it was difficult. So, and then we took the previous set of goals and kind of looked at a place for everyone and, you know, the city's strategic plan, and tried to, you know, align these goals as closely as we could with that, plus the original study that we had, which at the time we did this was 8 years old or something. So it wasn't the best data to use. So, but it is what we have and what we work through and reach consensus on. So I would just say these maybe aren't perfect, but they're a good starting place. And maybe when we get the new study, we should maybe revisit them a little bit.
Yeah.
Would be I mean, knowing how we got here and the data we used and everything else, we don't need to wait 5 years to revisit these. We should probably revisit these in a year or two when we have that data.
Yeah.
Would be my personal take on it, knowing what we did to get to here.
Yeah. And if I could offer just a bit more context. So the goals really feed into the trust fund grant process. So the goals that we have identified are the eligible project categories for trust funds. And so that I would say, like, with the context that even if we do change the RFP or the NOFO for the trust funds, that likely will not be for the next round. And so we will need something informing what our priorities are for the next round of trust funds. And so that's how I envision these goals being used. Originally, we had outputs associated with each goal, and so we knew like what we were working towards. We could give benchmarks to ourselves and the community. And those outputs were taken from the original housing study recommendations. I've removed the outputs on this document because we're getting an updated housing study, so we'll have a better idea. But that is the board may consider that suggestion, as I heard it, that maybe instead of creating 5-year goals, the board considered just creating goals for this next round of funding and then see what the housing study
Just
recommends.
to clarify, were you saying that there is funding tied to each of the goals, as in our allocatable amount of funds is, like if we scratched a goal, would that decrease the amount of funding that we had to offer for?
Oh, no, it would just eliminate, so for example, if the board wanted to eliminate the goal around increasing accessibility for persons with disabilities through rehab, then that might not be or would not be an eligible category for trust fund awards any longer.
Understood, okay.
I would not recommend that.
And this is a document I would encourage our work group that will be looking at the funding process to take inspiration from. But in the light that we would utilize this 5-year goal for the calendar year of 2025 to allocate the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, since it is earlier than I thought it would be, does it feel beneficial to discuss those now? And since our action is still to approve these, ensure that they feel like they're in alignment with what we want to do? Or would this necessitate potentially a meeting where we do a more in-depth study session to analyze these goals and make sure they are what we want for this year's application?
I feel comfortable with the latter. of your suggestion, because Monty, you were speaking about how long of a process this was. It also was engaging. We had a moderator, and we utilized someone who helped us facilitate this conversation. It really was helpful to bring out those bullet points and any brainstorming, to have someone who was a professional guide those discussions with us. So I'm open to hearing what the other board members think about examining these goals that we have today, knowing that we're going to have a housing study that's going to help us align with some of maybe possibly new goals or support the existing goals that we have here.
I think putting it off and having a moderator makes sense.
Would we need that in-depth of a process if we are utilizing this for this year with the potential of a sub-work group discussing the future utilization of the trust fund and a housing study that may ask of us to revise these or look at it in a different way? I guess what I'm asking is, like, for use of this year, what would we like to do versus all that can be done to revise, relook, redo once we have the housing study, once the work group has accomplished the work it intended?
I guess the way I look at this, I mean, I look at the actual goal. If I wish the strategies said possible strategies, because we're not going to utilize all of those, and that goes in, it goes a little deep, maybe. The goal is, I mean, increasing supply of permanently affordable housing units for people below 80 AMI. I mean, that's a pretty broad. I think we could, the NOFO, even within the NOFO, we could narrow that down if we need houses with 3-bedroom units. That still falls into this goal. So I don't know that it's urgent that we redo this. I'd almost rather wait for the study and kind of see what the community need in that is, and then revisit this. I think this is broad enough. It's not going to limit us into what we can do, and maybe within our subgroup, we can come up with a few tweaks to the NOFO that would narrow the scope of what we get back. I mean, I look back at and I'm going to be nostalgic and go back a little bit for everybody. But when we started this, we just wanted housing. All we knew we had such a need. We needed 2,500 of this, and we needed 700 of that, and we just said, we're going to throw a big net, and we're going to try to get the most housing we can get. And now, 6 years later, we're at the point it's like, okay, we got quite a bit of just general housing, and we saw what the market would deliver, and it's not delivering what we need now. So now let's narrow in and get our NOFO so it delivers what we need. That's where I see we are. I think I think this study is a great idea, and we get that. It'll help us do that. Maybe we can do a little bit, make a little bit of progress in this next NOFO with the subgroup, and then we really revisit this as a larger group. That would be my take, that one opinion, one voice in this group.
Were you guys talking about potentially changing the NOFO by the 2026 round? Is that what we had discussed a while ago?
The next round.
So I'm curious what the value in looking at adjusting the goals are if we're not going to adjust the NOFO until next year. And I may just be missing something.
So what I'm saying is we maybe tweak the NOFO a little bit, but not go real far.
And that's
I mean,
this year.
we make some minor changes to it this year. Maybe we can do that for this year's NOFO and try to narrow what we're getting a little better.
Since these are broader goals.
I don't think it impacts this. It's still going to fall within this general framework. We can do a little bit of work, but then when we get the study, then we really need to drill down further.
Correct.
And really try to hone in on our NOFO.
I think that feels right to me, to be able to not spend a whole lot of time in here knowing that it will be something that we want to get to once we have more than a 2019 housing study. And I agree. I think these are broad enough and are in very good alignment with a place for everyone, that our adjustment will come with maybe how we look at the application this year, as is, not, radically shifting it for this year.
Yeah, I know I've been listening to everyone's comments, and I don't know that there's a need to invest much time in the goals right now because we don't have any new or different data as to use to make any informed revisions to them. So I'm in agreement with, I would be comfortable just adopting these today, personally, and then working towards revisions in the future when we have more data.
Would it be comfy for folks if we changed it to 2025 AHAB goals? And then perhaps with that revision, perhaps members would be comfortable going ahead and approving the goals with?
Versus them saying that they're 5-year goals?
Yeah. Just
That feels
for
better.
that clarity.
Yeah, I think that feels right, yeah.
I think with also too, I'm sorry, Mario, if you were saying something. I think with the clarity that the 2025 end of the year will be the report due. Now, I know that there could be some complications, unknowns that would push that report to be in a different year. But if we have an understanding that this is the year that we receive that report, I think we can move with some clarity on pushing this to 2025.
Yeah. And I think the knowledge too, that if we need to adopt these in 2026, there's nothing holding us back from saying,
Right.
let's copy and paste.
I think you got a little license on, the committee's different, and next year we're gonna have new data.
Yeah.
I mean, that gives us kind of license to look, the last committee developed these, there's nothing wrong with them, we're gonna keep them for this year, next year we're gonna relook at it,
Yeah.
when we have new data.
Yeah.
New data,
Yeah.
so.
In previous years were, is it goal number 8 that is on racial equity? This year, the application process, that felt like, goal 6, thanks. It felt like a way that some of the developers were able to check a bunch of boxes and get a bunch of extra points. But I don't know how, if we're providing affordable housing, short of redlining, how are we supposed to increase the amount of affordable units available to specific groups of people? Like reverse redlining, if that was a thing, I know it's not, and I'm not advocating for it. But I don't know how, I didn't see in the application process how that was actually put in action. And it wound up, while I agree completely with the goal, in practice, it wound up being a way to get an extra 25 points by saying that these will be available for minorities and women-led households, but
Because they have to, because of fair
because
housing.
that's the way that works.
So,
Yeah.
so I'm gonna speak to that, because I struggled with that.
Yeah.
As we reviewed the things, and the way I looked at it personally when I scored was I said, look, if they meet the bare minimum requirements, that's the lowest score I can give them in that. If they were reaching out to communities, if they had records of serving those communities
Yep.
and had data to support that, and, their, programs, whatever, they elaborated on what they're doing to reach out to that's when I gave them the higher scores. And the other ones, I gave a minimum score.
Right.
So it kind of came down to, and we struggled.
Yep.
We struggled mightily with how to do exactly what you're saying. How do we put that into action? Because it was difficult.
Because I don't want to
To do it
scrap
well.
racial equity in housing, but
Right.
like when it becomes an easy way to get points.
Absolutely.
And
Right, but it came down to how each of us score. That's the
Yeah.
way I looked at it. I looked at it as like, you did the minimum. Yeah, I meet the federal requirements. It's like, well,
Right. You
that's
have to.
required.
You
That's
have to.
not.
Yeah, well, and
That's not-
I'll also say that increasing housing stock, while a goal, we also have utilized the trust in the past to fund programs. And I think my whole jive and why I'm glad we have this subcommittee is that this is a very pragmatic requirement, like a rubric in which, like, if I have a program that I'm asking the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to fund, yes, I should absolutely have racial equity as something that I'm working in and towards and serving the community, because it is very hard to say, I'm going to develop something that is specifically for this population
Right.
without
Viol-
violating fair housing, which again, I'm like,
Right.
this is the thing that
almost a reverse.
unfortunately has happened with fair housing laws. It's been turned into
Right.
this, yeah, I won't get into that. But, and that's also something nationally that they're looking at, which, yay. But I always had, even in applying for the grant in organizations I've been, looked at that as like, this is a more program-based scoring space,
Understood.
which I think is why it merits being in there, because we should, if we
Sure.
are going to fund programs through the trust, 1000% we should be looking at equity, racial equity in it. The developing thing, I agree. If the only way we can truly look like that is historically how that particular applicant has been looking at and serving communities, they should have thought, if they're doing that, give them the highest score. If they're,
These are
Or like-
available for.
right, if they're just saying that, then I'll be like, cool,
Yeah.
like,
Right.
you didn't meet that.
Yeah, it came
that's
down to,
okay.
on the application, is this the population you could serve?
Right.
Or is this the population you're actually trying to serve?
Yeah.
And my hope
know?
is, looking
Yeah,
at.
anybody, I mean,
I guess I
you can
just,
check every box on that thing. Yeah, those people could live here. But that doesn't mean you're reaching
Yeah.
out to them or trying to serve that community. And
Yeah.
that, to me, that was a differentiator
Yeah.
on how I scored them, but.
Yeah. And my hope is, as we utilize that work group, that subcommittee, that we really look and kind of try to figure out the process that we want that could maybe separate those two
Right.
things that we fund, or come to a determination of how to use that funding and really influence equity in a way that is not, bypassing, honestly, the whole idea of coming to.
Right.
Because I'm with.
not the
you
goal,
on that.
by the way, I'm just,
Right.
yeah.
No, I'm with you on
Right.
the ways in which it can be manipulated. and
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think when the board added this goal, the hope and intent was also that we would see projects, like you stated,
Right.
come forward specifically for that purpose.
Yeah.
Programmatic kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have
I was just
not
thinking
gotten.
like housing and then
Yeah.
it's specifically for, and I just got lost. I think I just misstepped in giving points out, so it
Well-
felt like,
No, it's
I
a
was-
tough one.
Yeah.
Also, that was the first year we've had this in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was our first attempt at trying
Yeah.
to grab that information from the applicants in an effective way, so.
Yeah. And luckily in partnership with the Place for Everyone, I mean, there is a restorative housing work group that will make recommendations to us that could help us really understand the ways, if we utilize the trust to specifically help
Have an impact.
population and have an impact and, speak truth to power in that particular goal. But yeah, I think it's forthcoming.
That would be good.
So can I just, if
You want a
it's okay
motion?
for me to do a temperature check?
Yeah,
bef-
thank you.
Maybe before to make sure, so what I will do, and sorry, I'm talking over myself. The next time this group meets, you will be reviewing the draft NOFO for 2026. So that is the speed at which we are moving. And so in between this meeting and the next time we meet, I will make the draft NOFO, and I just need to make sure that we want all of these categories included as eligible project categories. So,
I'd be comfortable. I'd be comfortable with the edit of maybe making it a 2025 goal. You've already struck the things that are no longer applicable to the goals and strategies, so.
so we're comfy. Okay.
I think there was also a motion made. Elizabeth, did you set a motion into action? I just wanted to capture that.
Oh, it was not an official motion.
Okay. Would you like to make an official motion?
Sure. I move to adopt these as the 2025 goals.
seconded.
Okay, has So moved. I'll go through the list of members and get everyone's yay or nay. Andrew Gallagher.
Yay.
Mario Fierro.
Yay.
Christina Gentry, yes. Elizabeth O'Neill.
Yes.
And Monty Soka.
Yes.
Okay, this passes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I keep having to count us here, but we're sixth. In passing, in adoption or approved to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board goals for 2025 and beyond. I really look forward to that 2025 housing study.
Me too.
Really looking forward to getting into the information that can help us decide some of these goals and look forward to diving into those too. Okay.
It'll also be really interesting to see how our community engagement group works and if that's impactful,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was a little bit of a leap of faith, in my opinion, to fund at the level we did, but I think it's good.
Yeah.
I hope it has a great impact and we see something, because it'd be great.
I think so.
but-
Yeah, at least have some confidence that this housing study will
Yeah.
be a very, hopefully, depending on who's consulting, we'll have a lot of community participation. And for me, it will probably just affirm my suspicions around where we are in the housing space, but
Right.
it's good to be affirmed.
Yeah, will it be a surprise or not really?
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, no.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, please discussion.
It was great to see the email from the State of Today on, I don't know if it was from the.
Oh, the pit,
on
yeah.
the day count. And that we had a significant reduction in unhoused or unsheltered.
Seeking shelter.
Yeah, populate, I thought that was awesome. I mean, it's like, yes, we're doing something right.
Yeah, and I.
You know, it's really affirmative for me anyway.
That community engagement piece can also give us a flex report, right, too?
Right.
So we can continue talking about what we're doing in the community.
Yeah.
Great discussion. I'm very excited. Okay. So thank you for that discussion. We'll wrap it up and move on to our agenda item. And we're under C, other business. Is there other business to consider and talk about during this time?
I don't think so. With that, yeah,
No.
just pay attention to the
Okay.
state legislature.
Yeah.
Just keep abreast of the news, I guess.
Do we,
It's
Yeah.
always changing. It's evolving.
do we pause for public comment after each letter now?
Oh, no, we have public comment at the very end of our meeting.
We never.
Okay, I thought we didn't do the shift.
No, no.
My mistake.
Is it appropriate to encourage the AHAB to pay very close attention to what is happening at our state legislator?
Members could.
Okay. I would just like to, I guess, provide a legislative update. I can't remember what committee it is. There is a current piece of legislation to take away the low-income housing tax credit funding at the state level, which is wildly concerning, as that is one of very few, other than what we do here, ways in which we can actually build and develop affordable housing. That was heard in committee last week. There was about 39 testimonies, both submitted and in person, in opposition to that, 0 in favor. At this point, that bill is going to probably be reworked in committee, but there is a desire to eliminate that particular low-income housing tax credit, which would be detrimental to our state. So if you have any desire to reach out to your representatives and name the importance of that, that's obviously not something we'll do as a board, but something you'll do individually. I just absolutely encourage you to. And if you have questions, I'm happy to give the knowledge I have. There is the advocacy group, the Kansas Housing Advocacy Network, that's been working really hard to pay attention to legislative session and show. There's several bills that are currently being reviewed. There's a really good eviction one that they're looking at to potentially seal eviction records, and so there's some really great stuff. There's also some things that if, they just kind of get passed under without close attention would be detrimental to the housing space as we know it. So, yeah.
It's House Bill 2119.
Yes. So, yeah, I think we'll see what the updates will be, but
Thank you for putting that on everyone's radar. I would mention other business. I don't know if this falls in the category, but I think it absolutely does. There is a community meeting that happens in support of the 9th Street Church and Family Promise Hope Project.
Oh, yeah, thank you for mentioning.
Oh, absolutely. And so a little bit about the Hope Project. It came to our AHAB not very long ago, I want to say last
round.
year.
Yeah.
And so this Hope Project is breaking ground and looks to have support from the community. So there's public comment that could be written. You can also come and show up and support this project. So the 9th Street, just a little bit of context, the 9th Street Missionary Baptist Church was awarded a grant to build affordable housing on their land. And so those homes will be directly used by Family Promise guests. And so the Family Promise rotation works with churches. And so this is a really great time for them to have on-space location for families and children. And so I think this is a great project, and I'm happy that we were able to support them. And if we want to continue to support them, it's a letter of recommendation that they're asking for if we could support also in person by giving public comment.
Can you give us the details on it, or email?
Yeah,
Can you get
I
that
can
emailed
share
out
that
to us or
email out
something?
with you, absolutely.
Yeah, I would.
it's public comment next week.
Is it
Yes.
City Commission meeting?
The meeting would
next
be on
week?
February 26th at City Hall.
Planning Commission.
It's Planning Commission.
Yeah, at
Okay.
6:30. And so we'll share that email out. I think that's a really great way to talk about some of the projects that we came across that are absolutely on ground running feet first. So I plan on speaking and giving a recommendation by AHAB, but please do come if you're able to support this project.
Great organization.
Yeah.
Yes, and absolutely helping families, which is something I think this board discussed last round as a gap, and Family Promise has always been an organization that has worked really hard to fill that gap, and I think this collaboration is hugely impactful and needed, so if we can have as much support as possible, it'd be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Well, that was other business. Did we have any
I got
additional?
one other thing. I was just going to add what Muriel said. It's the there's a Kansas statewide homeless coalition. You can get on their listserv, and they kind of give you all this information about what's going on in the legislature. If you're interested in following, just Kansas statewide homeless coalition.
Yep, they run the advocacy network,
Yeah.
and they'll drop you.
It's really informative.
Yeah.
Once a week, they send
Yeah,
something, basically.
They're having
Here's what's happening this week in the legislature. And
They rescheduled their Capitol Hill Day. They were having a Capitol Hill Day. I think it's rescheduled for March 7th if anyone has interest in participating in a Capitol Hill Day. But yeah, they list the specific pieces of legislation, and they have templates on, talking points, things like that.
Right.
So wonderful resource.
if you're compelled to speak, they'll tell you when to be there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to say Kahan's up there. If you go up in the corner, yeah, that's it.
Oh, okay. Excellent.
And so I don't know if the audience could see this, but in that screen that Leah has is a little bit more information about the homelessness in Kansas, statewide homeless coalition, and click here to join the mailing list. So great updates and other business. I love it when we collaborate and pull in what's going on in the community and talk about that here. All right, awesome. So moving on, we have almost at the end of our agenda, we have our calendar to explore on item D. So I'll just read these out just so that we're all in alliance with it. April 10th, we have the Affordable Housing Advisory Board meeting where we will review and discuss the 2026 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Oh, you're right. It was in May.
Yes.
It's April 10th.
Yes, April 10th. Moving on into the calendar year, May 8th, we'll be approving the 2026 Affordable Housing Trust Fund Notice of a Funding Opportunity. This will be a very busy end of the year for us. August 14th will be Affordable Housing Trust Fund Application Review and Scoring Training and Discussion. Can you talk a bit more about that training? Was there be like, this will be the time that we talked, like we did historically, and that 2 hours of time where we'll be going over line by line the application review and scoring
In the matrix.
in the matrix?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I see training and I think, okay, what does that mean? What are we going to learn? So that was what stuck in my head, but that's our calendar year moving forward. And then now we are into the space of public comment, our item E on our agenda. And so we open the space up for public comment. If there's public comment or any participants online, we welcome you to Zoom in. No? Seeing none, there is an empty house here, so I do not believe we have public comment in the space during this time. So moving on to adjourn.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
Do we need a vote for that since we are at 7:10?
No.
No? We could just
No.
skedaddle?
We're done.
Okay. Thank you all for this great discussion. We'll look forward to meeting you again in April.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on such a cold